Oh, yeah.
Try to look at the camera, but look,
Uh-huh.
So, we have to do this from the beginning again, from the period when you were born, and where you were born. So let's start with that. So, Verna Deckard, what's your middle name? Deckard?
Yeah, Deckard.
Deckard Williams was born in 1906, right?
That's what you want me to say?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So where and when were you born?
August 27th, 1906. Year of the earthquake in San Francisco.
That's right, yeah. And where were you born?
Tatum, Texas. It was called East Texas in Rusk County.
Mm-hmm.
Small town, population 500 people.
500 people, wow. And who were your parents?
Oh, Eula Hendricks Deckard and Jude Lazarus Deckard, J.L. Deckard they call him. Most people call him Deck.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how many children did they have?
They had 6, but I only remember 3.
They had 6 children, and what were who was the oldest child?
Dick, my brother Dick.
And then who was second oldest?
Well, I don't know his name. It was a boy, but he died when he was a baby.
Okay. How old was he when he died?
Oh, about a month old.
And then what about the third kid?
The third one lived to be about 9 months old.
He died.
And I think that was a girl.
And then the fourth one?
Let's see, the third one was Vera. I remember that name. The fourth one was, I guess, I was the fourth one.
Oh, you were the fourth one. Okay, so you were the fourth child, but only the second to actually live.
Yeah.
Right. And you had a sister after that?
And no, I had a brother after that.
Another brother.
Yeah, another brother, Mac Lewis Deckard.
Did he die too?
He died when he was 11 years old. Doctor gave him a shot. It was too strong and paralyzed him. And he lived about a year after the shot.
And then you had a sister after that.
Pardon?
You had a sister also after that?
No.
No?
No, he was the baby.
Oh.
The one who lived to be 11 years old was the baby.
Oh, okay, so he died. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you just had a brother.
Yeah. There's only one brother left and me.
And what was his name?
His name was Ullman, U-L-M-A-N, but we all called him Dick.
Dick. Okay. So, now, where was your father born?
He was born in Tatum, Texas, too, Rusk County.
And your mother?
She was born in Texas also.
Okay.
About the same little country town, community.
And where were your father's parents from?
Where's what?
Your father's parents.
Oh, well, my father's father, was born in Tennessee, and he was a slave. But he was 8 years old when they were freed. And my grandmother was born in Texas, and she was 11 years old when they were freed. But they met up in Texas.
So they were both slaves?
Yes, they both were slaves.
And what about your mother's side? Your mother's father?
Well, my mother's father was from Germany. He was a German. And I don't know where he was born, probably Germany, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But he died in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Monroe, Louisiana, where he died. And Mama's mother, her name was Savannah Jackson. She was born in Texas, too. And she died also.
Now, there was also some Indian and Scottish blood.
Oh, yeah, my father's grandfather, no, my father's father-in-law was Indian. My grandmother's father was Indian. And my father's was mostly Scotch. And
Okay, so there's quite a mixture there.
yeah,
Indian, black, German.
Indian, Scotch, German, and African.
Okay. So tell me about your father and your mother. Starting with your father.
Oh, my father was really a smart man, I'm telling you. He was a blacksmith, and he had the only blacksmith shop in that little town, and he had no competition. So he made all the money that was to be made in that field because he had no competition. People would come from miles around for him to shoe his horses and fix their wagons, and then later he started fixing cars. So he bought a car and tore it down, put it back together, taught himself how to be a mechanic. So he had a blacksmith shop and an auto repair shop, all in the same little town, but he had to build a larger building when he opened the automobile repair shop.
And what year was that, about 1910?
That was about 1917.
When he started?
When he built the building for the garage. But in 1919, some white man set it on fire. He just couldn't stand the idea of this Negro making all this money.
So how many cars were there in Tatum?
Oh, there was only 3, and Papa owned one of those.
He fixed 2 of the other cars, and people bring their cars in from other...
Yeah, from out of town. They'd come from miles around for Papa to do their work, because he was an honest dealer and a very good mechanic. And he didn't overcharge people. He was too free-hearted.
So then some white guy got jealous.
Yeah, got jealous of him making all this money and set his garage on fire, and it burned down to the ground. No fire department in that little town. So the people just everybody came to the fire, brought a bucket of water, because people had wells. They didn't have running water, had well water. Everybody brought a bucket of water when they came, but that didn't help. And they had to stand there and watch it burn down. And I remember when the building was burning down, I was standing by my dad, and he was crying, and he said, "I can't keep a good man down. I'll build another one." And he was just crying, but he was going to build another one. But he didn't. He didn't build another one there. He decided he better leave that little town, because they wouldn't have the guy arrested, the guy who set it on fire. Everybody knew who did it, but they wouldn't have him arrested. And so the white citizens, the businessmen of the little town, offered to rebuild his building. But he said, "What's use to rebuilding if you're not going to have him arrested? He could burn it down again." And but they were going to rebuild it at their expense if he'd stayed. They didn't want him to leave, because he really was a drawing card for that little town. And believe it or not, when he left, the little bank had to close. It had one little bank there, and it closed down when Papa left, because he didn't have anyone to draw the people there anymore.
Wow. So he was... Now how many businesses were there besides his?
Oh, there were grocery stores and one drug store.
But he was the only black person.
Yeah, he was the only black person who had one. And then there was a little barber shop. Papa rented a little building. He built a little building for a black barber next door to his shop. So he had a colored barber shop there. But it had dry goods run by the whites, dry goods store and a grocery store, feed store, and the little post office was there. And
now you started driving at what?
7 years old. I started driving a car when I was 7 years old. See, there weren't much traffic, so there was no danger of me getting run over. And it had mud roads, and you get in the rut, and the rut would drive the car itself. And Mama didn't like for me to be driving so young, but Papa made me have nerve. He said, "Go ahead and do it. You can do it."
So when did you start driving?
Pardon?
What year did you start driving? What year did you start driving?
What year did I start driving?
What kind of car was it?
Oh, a little Ford. And I was about, you said what year? Well, I was 7 years old. I was born 1906 and 7, about 1913.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a Ford, you know what kind of Ford it was?
No, but I have a picture of it here.
Okay, it's an old Ford.
Yeah, this little Ford, me and my dad sitting in the little car.
Okay. So he packed up and moved. Where did he move to?
What?
Where did you guys move? That's all right. When he decided to move, where did you guys move to?
Oh, we moved from Tatum, Texas to Terrell, Texas. Terrell is near Dallas. And they have an asylum in Terrell. And the kids used to tease me, want to know if I had just come from the asylum when they'd meet me. And I'd say I was from Terrell. And he built his auto repair shop in Terrell. And he built it out of metal, because he said, well, maybe they can't burn this one down. I'll build it out of metal. He bought a lot and built his own garage. And he bought the finest house in Terrell, one that Bill McDonald had built. He was a rich Negro that had moved from Terrell to Fort Worth. And this house was a big 2-story house. Nobody could afford to buy it till we moved to town. And when we moved to town, Papa bought it. So we had a big 2-story house in Terrell.
So he made good money.
Yeah, he made good money because he was a hard worker. He'd get up at 6 o'clock every morning and go to work, open his business. And he started this policy of lending people a car while he's working on theirs. That's popular now, but there was a time when you'd have to do without your car, but Papa always furnished somebody a car while he was working on theirs.
So what happened in Terrell?
Well, he was always a progressive type, and so in Terrell, a lady came to visit us who looked like white. She was real light colored woman, but people who didn't know her thought she was a white woman. So Papa was taking her around town, showing her around, you know, and Mama was home fixing the dinner while they were going sightseeing. And that night, 6 white men came to my father's garage, going to take him out and tar and feather him because he had this white woman out during the day. They thought she was a white woman. They didn't even ask him who she was. And but he and my brother outfought them. They did not succeed in getting him in the car, but they hit him in the head with a sledgehammer and tried to push him in the car. He said instead of it knocking him out, it made him mad and strong. He came up fighting. And my brother happened to be standing nearby, and he ran around to his rescue. And they outfought those men and got away from them. And they shot at him. But it wasn't a serious wound, just shot him in the flesh part of his arm. So some of the men had a gun to the workers? Oh yeah, there were 6 of them in the car when they first drove up. And 4 of them got out and went in the back and held guns on the boys that worked for my dad. And the 2 of them stayed out front and asked him to look at the battery. So he stooped over to look at the battery, and when he stooped over, that's when they hit him in the head with the sledgehammer. But he said it didn't knock him out. Their intention was to knock him out. He said he saw the tar and feathers in the car, but he didn't have any idea it was for him.
They were going to tar and feather him.
Yeah, they were going to take him out and tar and feather him.
No, they didn't see your brother.
No, well, they saw my brother, but they thought he was a little white boy standing over there. See, my brother was real light, and they just overlooked him because they thought he was a little white boy.
Okay. So after the fight, then what happened?
Oh, they ran, got away from them, and then they shot at them. Well, they hit my dad in the arm, flesh part of his arm. They shot at my brother. My brother ran zigzag. He said he saw in the movies where people would run zigzag and they would shoot at him and wouldn't hit him. So they missed my brother. They didn't hit him. So the very next day, they left and came to Los Angeles. That's
your father and brother?
And my brother, yeah.
And they came to Los Angeles because of why? I mean, who lived in Los Angeles?
Oh, my uncle lived here. My mother's brother, he was already here. And so they came, and he enticed them to come. Well, they left the very next day.
So they left because they thought that the men might come back.
Yeah, they figured they'd come back and finish the job, but they didn't finish.
So they left you and your mother here.
Yeah, left us in Texas. And my cousin, that my dad had taught how to be a good mechanic, he ran the business. And every night he'd bring the money home to my mother.
And that was 1922?
Yeah, that was in 1922.
Okay, let's stop right there. All right, so you, your brother and father moved to Los Angeles in 1922 to stay with a cousin?
No, we just got a room with some people.
But you said he had a
Brother-in-law here.
brother-in-law, okay.
But he was living out in service. He worked for a movie star, and he lived on the place, so he didn't have a house. So we just got a room with the couple, Mr. and Mrs. Keys. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the shuttling pony.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, when we lived in Tatum, our entertainment was a circus. When the circus would come to town, you know, they'd bring all these different kind of horses and animals. And the first time I'd ever seen a little shuttling pony, a circus came to town and brought a little shuttling pony with a little buggy to match and a little saddle. And I got so excited over that little horse. I'd never seen a little horse like that. And I just nagged my papa, and I just hollered up, jumped up and down, "Papa, I want that little horse, I want that little horse." And Papa went and bought that horse from the circus man, paid $300 for that little horse, and the buggy, and the little saddle to match him, and called it Beauty. And that was my little horse. Oh, that was a treasure in my childhood days. But our house got burned down in Terrell, Texas, and so the picture, I don't have a picture of it because the pictures got burned up that we had in the house.
What happened to the horse?
Pardon?
What happened to the pony?
Well, after the newness wore off, Papa sold it.
Okay, so what happened then once they moved to L.A., you guys came, you and the family came to visit in 1924.
Yeah, my Papa and my brother came out in 22, and Papa stayed a whole year. Then in 1923, he came back. He figured after a year, maybe they'd forgotten about him, and they wouldn't try to tar and feather him anymore. So he came back, because he still had all of his property there in Terrell. He had bought rent property, he had his building where he had his business and the house that we lived in. So he just couldn't run off and stay. So he came back and stayed a year. So that following year, 1924, he brought my mother and me out to visit my brother. And then he made me go to summer school when I got here. And I met all the nice kids in school that summer. And I had a car. I was the most popular girl in town because I had a car. Papa had bought me a 1924 Ford Coupe. I have a picture of that. And so I drove to school every day. Me and a girl named Gwendolyn Diggs, the only two that had cars. She'd drive one day and I'd drive one day. And after school, we'd go to Mrs. Ross's sweet shop. All the kids would meet up at the sweet shop and gather around and have malted milks and ice cream sundaes and things like that. And then I had a brother that was single. So that made me doubly popular because I had a single brother too. And so I met all the cream of the crop. I was really a celebrity here in Los Angeles. So I was enjoying myself so much, I decided I wasn't going back to that old bad Texas. And so I tried to get my mother to let me stay out here and go to school. Well, they wouldn't do it because I was only 17. And I was trying to figure out a way how I could stay because I said, I do not want to go back to Texas. So I had been here 2 months and I met Arthur.
Well, where did you meet Arthur? Tell me about that.
Pardon?
Tell me where you met Arthur. How did you meet Arthur?
How did I meet him?
Yeah.
Oh, every Friday night, somebody would have a little house party. So I met him at a little house party. And but I had been here 2 months before I met him. And I had met lots of other little boys, but I couldn't go out with any of them. They could come over to my house, but I couldn't go out with them because my mother wasn't letting me go out with boys yet. But I could have company at home. And so when I met Arthur, and Arthur came over, well, they liked him. They thought he was such a nice young man. So they let me go out with him by myself. Before, if I went out, my brother had to go along. But this time they let me go with Arthur. And he was a nice boy. And so I kept singing the blues to Arthur, but I didn't want to go back to Texas. And suddenly, about 3 days before time for me to go back, I said to him, you know, I'd do anything to stay here in Los Angeles. I do not want to go back to that old bad Texas. So he thought for a minute, and then he said, you really don't want to go back to Texas? I said, no, I don't. Well, I know how you could get to stay out here. How? How? Oh, I got all excited. How? He says, well, you could marry me. I said, yes, before he got it out of his mouth good. So the next day I met him downtown at the Hall of Records and lied about my age, said I was 18 to get the license. And the lady knew I was lying, but she saw I was so determined she let me have them. And there was a carpenter, a colored carpenter working in the Hall of Records that Arthur knew. And he was a minister, but that was his daytime job. So Arthur went and found him, and he married us right there in the Hall of Records, and 2 white painters were the witnesses. And then I went on back home as if nothing had happened. And that night, a friend of mine, Anna Louise Nelson, well, she was Anna Louise Griffith then, she was having a farewell party for me that night. And I went to the party and announced at the party that I had gotten married and I wasn't going back to Texas. Ooh, everybody just jumped for joy. And they all went home with me to break the news to my parents. Boy, my dad cried when they went home and told him. He cried. My mother was glad of it because she said she was worried. She didn't want me running around with these fast girls. She called them fast girls. So she was glad I got married.
So what happened to your father eventually?
Well, he wouldn't let me go home with the boy that night. He made me stay home. And he was leaving the next morning to go back to Texas. And he was trying to decide whether to have it annulled or not. So I didn't sleep that night at all for thinking about it. And bright and early the next morning, Arthur comes back to hear the verdict. So Papa decided to let me stay. And he pulled out a $50 bill and gave it to me for a wedding present. I was so happy. And that day, after Papa and Mama left and drove back to Texas, we went to the beach, spent all day at the beach, didn't know where we were going to stay. I hadn't even thought about where we were going to stay. And so that night, I said, where are we going to stay? And Arthur said, I don't know. We had to go find a room. So we went around looking for rooms. Nobody had a room. So we ended up spending the night with his grandmother. That's where he was living anyway, with his grandmother. So we spent the night in her house, just one night. The next day, they found us a room with a nice lady.
So that was 1924. So then, when was Arthur Jr. born?
November the 4th, 1925.
And did you have a hard time conceiving?
Oh yeah, I had to take a bottle of Lydia Pinkham's vegetable compound. Seemed like I wasn't going to ever get pregnant, and I wanted a child. And so I bought, some older lady told me, get a bottle of Lydia Pinkham's vegetable compound. There's a baby in every bottle. So I got a bottle of that and took it.
Is that on the bottle?
Yeah, just one bottle.
Did it say it on the bottle?
Oh yeah, it said that on the bottle, yeah.
There's a baby in it.
Baby in every bottle, yeah.
And it worked.
And it worked for me. Yeah.
One bottle and it worked.
Yeah, one bottle, it worked.
Baby, one bottle.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was born at 25. So tell me about when Arthur got sick, and then you had to start working. That's how you started your career.
Oh yeah, he got sick. A year later he got sick. Got a bad cold. He didn't want me to work. And he held down 2 jobs to keep me from working because I wanted to work. And I had never worked before. My dad wouldn't let me work, and Arthur wouldn't let me work. Looked like I wasn't going to ever get to work. But after I got started, it looked like I'm never going to quit. I'm still working.
And why did you want to work so bad?
Because I wanted things, and I could see that we couldn't get it on what he was making. And I figured if I supplemented the income, we could get things faster, you know. I wanted to buy property. And so Arthur got this bad cold. And the doctor didn't tell him to stay home. He just gave him a shot and let him keep on working. And his resistance was so low he couldn't throw it off. And went into tuberculosis. And so a year later he died.
Now, when he got sick, he went to live with his mother?
Yeah, we were living with my mother.
Oh, but
And father.
Didn't you go back?
Well, yeah, while he was sick, his mother lived in Greenville, Alabama, and she couldn't leave to come out here to see him because she was principal of the little school there in Greenville. So she persuaded us to come down there. So my parents got our affairs together and sent us down there. And I stayed down there 3 months. I couldn't stand it any longer. So Arthur Jr. and I came back home and left Arthur Sr. there. And like to broke Arthur Sr.'s heart because he said I was leaving him because he was sick. And I said, no, there's no opportunities down here. I got to go home and get a job so I can help us, because you can't work. So I came on anyway, against his will. And then 6 weeks later, I had made enough money to send for him. And then he came back, and he was so happy. But he died later. But I felt good that I had done all I could do for him.
And he died in what year?
1927.
Okay. So where did you work while you were?
Well, my first job I got was a waitress at a little restaurant on 12th and Central. That's where the colored businesses was then, 12th and Central. Later it moved down to 43rd Place and Central. But then it was 12th and Central. So this little restaurant, and they served good food. And they paid $10 a week, and I made about $15 a week in tips. I made good tips because I was well on the ball, I'm telling you. I gave them good service. And then later, the lady, I was making so many tips, the lady who run the place got jealous. She waited table too, but they didn't give her tips because they knew she was the owner. And so one day she said I was $10 short on the register. Well, how could I make a $10 mistake? Well, I never made a mistake before. Then I'm going to make a big $10 mistake. So I knew she just didn't want to pay me my salary that week. So I took her to, Labor Department. And they made her pay me half of it because both of us was working on the cash register. But I quit. I decided, well, she's just a conniver, and she's going to take advantage of me, so I don't need to work for her. So I quit. My dad always told me I didn't have to work anyway. But I knew I didn't have to work, but I wouldn't have anything if I didn't work. I didn't have to play in a room, rent a food, buy food, but I wanted other things in life. So I felt secure in quitting. I felt I had a place to stay. But my next job was cashier at a theater. A Japanese man had a little theater called the Gaiety Theater on 23rd and Central Avenue. That was before they built the Lincoln Theater. And this was a Japanese man. And my dad's garage was across the street from his place. And so one night he got mad at his white cashier, and he went over and asked my dad, did he know a colored girl he could get to work for him. Papa said, yeah, my daughter. So he called me, and I went down that same night and got the job. And I stayed there as long as I wanted to stay. And then when they built the Lincoln, I got a job at the Lincoln.
Now, what about the Gaiety Theater? Weren't you the first something?
Oh yeah, I was the first colored cashier in L.A. Yeah, they didn't have but 4 theaters on Central Avenue, and that was one of them, and it was run by Japanese, and the other 3 were run by whites. Okay. And so he broke the color barrier and gave me a job.
So later you worked at the Lincoln Theater?
Yeah, when they built the Lincoln Theater, I got a job over there, and I was making more money. And also, I got an elevator license. I used to run an elevator by day and cashier at night. I was holding 2 jobs.
So how did you have time to take care of Arthur Jr.?
Well, Mama, she took over. My mother, Eula, she just took over. She took complete charge of Arthur.
So you were living with your mother?
Pardon?
You were living with your mother?
Yeah, I still live with them.
Okay, with her?
Yeah, and Papa, Mama and Papa.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they moved back, they moved to L.A.
Oh yeah, a year later they moved. See, after I ran off and got married, they went back home and sold out everything, and except the big house that they had. And a fire came along, set it on, and it caught on fire, and they couldn't put it out. They had to stand there and watch it burn down. And so he got the insurance from the house, sold the lot for $500, and the man never did pay him. But at least he got $2,500 for the house. So then he moved back out here and bought a house where we were living on 58th Place. And that's where Arthur Jr. was born.
58th Place.
Mm-hmm. What year?
You said on 58th Place?
Yeah, 58th Place, yeah. Oh, he had a time there too when he bought that house. That was restricted area. But that house was not restricted. The people hadn't signed the restrictive covenant, so they could sell it to whomever they wanted to.
It was restricted in what way?
Couldn't sell it to colored people. Just sell it to whites only. But that particular house, they hadn't signed that restrictive covenant. But the other neighbors didn't want colored in the neighborhood, so they tried to run my dad out. 50 of them came to our house one night and stood on the lawn, told us to move before daylight in the morning. And Papa wasn't home. It's a good thing he wasn't, because if he'd gone out there shooting, because he was so mad.
So this was a mainly white area?
Yeah, it was all whites.
All white.
We were the only colored in that block. Mm-hmm.
So why did he move there as opposed to a black area?
Well, it was a cheaper. He got a cute little house, practically a new house, and cheaper. We looked all over town, and that was the cheapest one. It was nice too. It was like a little new house.
And that was, so what year would that be? Was is that after Arthur died?
Yeah, Arthur. Oh no, I'm sorry. That was before he died.
So they came back a year later.
Yeah.
So like I think it was 1925.
Yeah, they came back in 1925.
And then Arthur Jr. was born that year.
Yeah,
Okay.
Papa was born. Arthur Jr. was born in that little house. Mm-hmm.
You have a picture of that house?
Pardon?
You have a picture?
Yes, I have a picture of it.
Okay, yes, you can give it to me later.
Well, it's not really a good view, but I have a side view of it.
Okay, you can show it to me later.
Pardon?
You can show it to me later.
Okay.
Okay, so you worked at the Lincoln Theater. by night, and you worked the elevators by day, so you had 2 jobs, and so then what happened? Now we're moving to the 1930s, the Depression years. Then you met someone and got married.
Oh, yeah. Met a fellow named Theodore Banks. They called him Tootie. He was the most popular boy in town. And I was in love with Tootie. And we went together about 4 years, then we got married. But we didn't stay together but about 11 months because he wasn't ready to settle down.
You was Mr. Flirt?
Yeah, just flirt with all the women. He didn't know how to settle down. He thought he wanted to be married and going to be single too.
Mm-hmm. Now, well, one thing about that house too, is that house on 58th and Hooper?
Yeah, near Hooper on 58th Place.
58th Place.
1 block south of Slauson.
Okay.
But it's not there anymore.
Not there anymore.
The factory's bought it and moved it off the lot, and it's used for parking lot now.
Okay, so you met Theodore Banks. You guys were married for a little while, and you realized he didn't want to settle down. Where were you living when you guys got married? Did you buy?
Oh, no, when I married Theodore, we rented a house over on the west side on Normandy, 36 in Normandy. We had a nice little house that we rented.
So that was 1932.
Yeah, and then we separated. I went back home.
Okay. Okay. So then what happened? Then you met someone else.
Yeah, well, I'm by this time I'm still cashier. And then I met a nice older man named Dr. Cox, Dr. Everett Cox.
Now, between the times that you were married, you were young, working. Were you? Because I noticed that you have some pictures like the bathing suit contests. And when did that take place?
Oh, that was in '29.
So that was.
I wasn't married then.
That was before you got married the first time.
Yeah, the second time before I
So what
married.
was that all about? The bathing suit contest.
Well, the colored people had bought what they call the country club at Corona, California, called Park Ridge Country Club. Beautiful clubhouse. And they were trying to promote it. And so this opening day, they had this bathing beauty contest. And I was in the bathing beauty contest. I have a picture of that, too.
But you didn't win. Did you win?
Yeah, pardon? Did I win? Oh, I didn't win any prize that was significant. I won one of the last prizes. But everybody said I should have. It was cut and dried before the contest started. They gave it to Carolyn Snowton's showgirls. They got the best prizes. But I did get one of the...
So did you go to like parties, and did you do any modeling or anything when you were, between your marriages?
Did I go to modeling?
Did you like do any modeling, or did you go to parties a lot? Or did you just
Oh yeah, we still went to lots of house parties. Kids were still having little house parties, and I'd have little house parties too. Mama would let me have house party at home. Yeah, we were going around. That was the trend then. Nice little house parties. No drugs and no liquor, just plain punch.
Okay. So then back to Dr. Cox. So you met Dr. Cox, you married Dr. Cox in 1934. So then what, tell me about him.
Well, he was a dentist from Little Rock, Arkansas, and he had come out here, but he wasn't able to practice because he hadn't gone to school to get his license for California. So he worked at the post office. So he had a good job at the post office, and he had his own home. So, and he was lots older than I was, but he was a nice fellow, and I admired him. And I told him in front I didn't love him, but he said, "Oh, well, I'll treat you so nice you'll learn to love me." And instead of him continuing to treat me nice, well, he became a dictator, and I couldn't stand him. So I stayed with him 3.5 years, though. And I went to school while I was with him and finished high school. And when I finished high school in 1936, he gave me and Arthur Jr. a trip to New York. That was my graduation present. And when I came back, he had remodeled the house at his taste, didn't ask me anything. I got so upset, I couldn't stand him anymore. I just had to leave.
You and Arthur, now where were you living, 45th Street?
Yeah, 45th Street near Hooper.
No, he had a nice house.
Yeah, he had a nice house for that area.
So you left the dictator, and
Oh, and so I decided, well, I'm not going to move back home anymore. I'm going to get out on my own. And so there was a little house for sale. Well, I went to rent an apartment right around the corner from where I was living. And this man wouldn't rent me the house because I had a child. And that insulted me when he talked about he couldn't rent me that house because I had a child. And that made me so mad. I'm walking home with Arthur's hand. I was holding on to Arthur, and we were walking down the street. And there was a sign on this house for sale in the same neighborhood. So I went over and I said to the man, don't you want to rent it? He says, no, I can't rent it. I'm about to lose it. I just want $300 for my equity, and you take the loan over, and I'll move out. And I didn't have but $100, but he wanted $300 down. But where there's a will, there's a way. So I looked at the house. It looked like a hog pen because the woman had 6 children, and she did not keep a good house. But I liked the floor plan of the house. It was 6 rooms, 3 bedrooms, and I could see the possibilities. So I said, okay, I think I'll buy it. He said, well, go see the real estate man. So I went to see the real estate man, and the real estate man was Mr. S.B.W. May. And Mr. May said, well, they won't let you assume the loan because you're not working. Buy it in your parents' name. So I figured out, well, okay, I'll buy it in my parents' name. And but I still got to get $200 more together because I only got $100. So Arthur Jr. was a thrifty little boy, and people were always giving him nickels and dimes. And he had a little dime bank. And when he got $5 in that little bank, he'd take that $5 and go put it in the bank. So I knew he had a bank account, but I didn't know how much he had. I said, Arthur, how much you got in your account? He said, $100. I said, will you lend it to me? Yeah, if you pay me interest like the bank's paying me. And I said, sure, I'll pay you interest. So, okay, I'll get his 100. I still need another 100. Well, I had a girlfriend working in San Diego, and she had a good job making $25 a week. This was Depression years now, you know. And I figured she could afford to lend me $100. So I called her up and asked her to lend me $100. She made the flimsiest excuse why she couldn't lend me $100. Oh, I found out later she's just jealous. She didn't want me buying a house, and she wasn't buying one. But she wouldn't lend it to me. So then I taught her 2 good friends here in L.A. And one was my friend Rita Smith, Rita Cohen Smith, my best friend. I asked her to lend me $50 because I knew everybody was having a tough time. So I said, well, maybe she could lend me $50. She loaned it to me just like that, and I just signed a note. Then I had a friend named Mr. Isaac Murray, who was a waiter at the Club Alabama. And I asked him to lend me $50, and he loaned me the other $50. So I got it made. So I bought the house. And then it needed painting, so I got a man to paint it and clean it up for $150. $15 down and $15 a month. Now, I don't have a job, but I had lots of confidence in myself that I could handle it, because I could see where I could rent out 2 bedrooms, and Arthur and I could share the other room. So in the meantime, I had the back porch screened in and glassed in, and I made a sleeping quarters out there for Arthur. Then I had a bedroom by myself, and I rented out 2 rooms for $5 a week. So that gave me $10 a week coming in. And my notes were only $18 a month. So I had $40 a month coming in from my rooms. So I figured I could take care of the payments like that. And before I could get my house ready, I had the rooms rented. Everything was just going along smoothly. And my horoscope had told me, this is your lucky year. Anything you want to do it this year. This is your lucky year. So I had confidence that everything was going to come out all right. And so people came over to see my house after I moved in. See what kind of house Verna can buy without having a job. And I didn't have any furniture in the living room. And they saw these beautiful floors because the man had finished the floors so nicely. And so they said, Verna, let me have a party here. Let my club have a party here before you get your furniture. And we'll pay you. So I started letting people have parties there on weekends. And I charged them $7 a night for the parties. So every weekend I'd have a party. So I was on Easy Street.
So what was it called?
4356 Hooper Avenue.
I mean, your house had a name, did it?
Oh, call it Verna's Party Den. Yeah. People used to have such good times with that. It was nice, clean little parties, too. No fights.
I guess you should mention that you weren't working because when you married Dr. Cox, you quit your 2 jobs.
Oh, yeah, when I married Dr. Cox, yeah, I quit.
Okay. So,
And went to school. See, I went to school.
You forgot your high school diploma.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was there anything else in the 30s that, since it was during the Depression years and things were tough, was there anything else that stood out? Being a young black woman, in those times?
Well, after I got my house all rented out and finished, all except the living room, I made up my mind, okay, now it's time for me to find a job, so I'm going to go find me a job. So I called Betty Hill. She was head of the Women's Political Study Club here. I said, Miss Hill, I need a job. And of course, her slogan was, prepare yourself before you can get a good job. Well, that's not mine. That's somebody else's phone. And so...
Wait till... Is it going to stop? Is the machine going to pick it up?
No, she's not here.
Oh, wait till it stops ringing.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, start at the beginning again.
Okay, so I called Betty Hill. I told her I needed a job. So she sent me out to the Pan Pacific Auditorium for 10 days as a demonstrator in a glass house called Edna Kerber's Glass House. And we demonstrated different food products in this glass house. And I worked there for 10 days, $3 a day. So that's $30 I made. And so one day I was working on Kraft products. And a man from Kraft Cheese Company came along while I was working on. See, this is my lucky year, The horoscope said this is your lucky year.
What year was this?
Pardon?
What year was this?
1937. And so this man from Kraft Cheese Company came on, but I didn't know he was from Kraft Cheese Company. I just thought he was just an interested person watching what I was doing. And he stood there and watched me. I made some cookies out of cream cheese, with Kraft's cream cheese. And he stayed there until I made those cookies and cooked them and served them. And they were delicious. And all I was doing was following the recipe. And he thought I was a good cook. And so after he tasted the cookies and they were so good, he pulled out his card and gave it to me. Said he was from Kraft Cheese Company. I said, you are? I said, oh, I'd love to have a job with Kraft Cheese Company. He said, doing what? I said, as a demonstrator. I had seen the white girls demonstrate in the different markets, and I'd never seen any colored girls doing it. So I wanted to be a demonstrator. So I told him I wanted to be a demonstrator. He says, come down and see me. That was before Parquet Oleomargarine came out. He said, we got a new product coming out. We're going to have lots of publicity going. He said, come down and see me in a month. Call me in a month. 2 weeks later, he calls me. I thought you were going to call me. I said, well, you told me to call you in a month. Well, can you come down now? I said, yes, I can come right now. So I went down and got the job as a demonstrator with Kraft Cheese Company. The first assignment I had was working at a studio. Then they made commercials to show in the movie houses because they didn't have TVs then. And so they were making a commercial about the Kraft product to show in the movies. And they had me working with a home economist from Chicago. And so we were preparing food. Only saw our hands. It didn't show us our body. It showed our hands working with the craft products. And I got to work out there for a month, and I made $30 a week. That was big money then, $30 a week. And then the company furnished me a car to drive back and forth to work every day, because I had to pick up this lady, the home economist, and take her to the studio. And so we'd work every day, and they let me keep the car, because I'd have to pick her up the next day, you know. And she was so nice to work for. So after that job was over, then they put me in the stores, and I worked for Kraft Cheese Company for about a year as a demonstrator by the week. And that way I got my furniture, and I paid the people back that I'd borrowed the money from. That's the first thing I did, paid my debts first before I went into more debt.
Move to your left just a little bit.
Pardon?
Move over that way just a little bit. And move your whole body.
That better?
Yeah, well, actually, it's too far back to the left. Right there. That's good.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. So then, let's move to the 40s. So who did you marry next?
Well, after Dr. Cox and I separated, my childhood sweetheart from Texas heard that I was separated. So he comes out here and pursues me. And I always used to say, well, maybe I should have married him at first. So I jumped up and married him, not knowing much about him. Because, see, we were kids when I lived in Texas. And after he'd grown up, I hadn't been around him, so I didn't know him. And I married him. And he was a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Oh, he was altogether different from what I thought he was. So I didn't stay with him but about nine months. I think I stayed with him about 9 months. That was Harris Waters. And
His name was Charles Waters?
pardon?
What was his name?
Harris.
Oh, Harris.
Yeah.
Not Charles?
Oh. No, I think he did call himself Charles, but his name was really Harris.
Okay. So then what point did you open your grocery store?
Well, this was in 1943. Or was it 42? Let's see. 1942, I opened the grocery store. Well, in the meantime, my father got sick, and he had his teeth pulled, and his jawbone never healed, and he got cancer of the jawbone. So he died in 1941. So it seemed like when my dad died, his business desire jumped into me. I decided I wanted to go in business. I had never wanted to go in business before. And so this little grocery store just fell in my lap, because I used to demonstrate in that little store. And the man who had the master lease, he saw I was a good salesman. He said, Verna, why don't you run that little grocery concession over there? I said, I don't have much money. How much would it cost to open it? He said, well, you just buy the man out, buy his stock. He doesn't have much stock. And you can pay me the rent at the end of the month instead of paying me in advance. Pay me at the end of the month. So he let me go in there like that. So every day when I'd sell something, I'd go replenish my stock. So pretty soon I had everything a grocery store needed. And so I had good business, because you could always get what you wanted when you came to my little store. Just a little grocery concession in with the Louisiana Fish Market. But I had everything, because I had bought a station wagon, and I'd jump in the station wagon and go to the wholesale house and get things so I wouldn't be out. I never had to say I was out, because I always kept my stock up. And I paid cash, too. I didn't sell anything on credit, because my dad had let people have their work on credit, and when he died, more people owed him money, and they never would pay him. So I decided I'm not going to let anybody owe me a nickel. So I wouldn't even let my mother come in there and buy anything on credit. She had to pay on the cash on the line. And so Well, one day, old man came in there that I knew from Texas, and he bought $1.25 worth of groceries, and he puts a dollar bill on the counter. Well, sister, I got $1. I said, well, that's $1.25, Reverend Bailey. He was a jackleg preacher. And I said, that's $1.25. Well, sister, I knew you before you were born. I said, Reverend Bailey, I'm not working for my health. I'm working for money. I have a son to educate, so I got to make money. I pay cash when I go to the store. I got to get cash when I sell it. So just leave some of your items off if you can't pay for it. And he got mad and put it all back, wouldn't buy anything. But a week later, he repented and he came back. Well, sister, I got to give it to you. You're a good little businesswoman. I said, well, I have to be if I want to stay in business. I can't stay in business and not make a profit. But anyway, I stayed there about, let's see, from 42, about a year and a half. And I made very good out of it, but it was too hard. And I got a chance to sell it, and I sold it. And then by that time, I was playing bridge with a real estate man, and he taught me into going into real estate. So I went to school and learned to be a real estate salesman and got my license and been selling real estate ever since.
So, you got your real estate license. Now, was that when you met Johnny Bean?
No, I had met Mr. Maddox, Al Maddox, big real estate dealer here in L.A., rich Negro. And I met him at the fish market when I had my little grocery store. And I knew that he was a successful businessman, real estate man. So I had started talking to him when I was going to school. I told him I was going to get my license. He said, come over and see me when you get your license. So when I got my license, I went over to see him, and I started working for him. And the first customer that I took out, I sold him a house. That was really lucky, I'm telling you. He was here from Louisiana. He had come out here. This was during the war by this time. And see, the war had started in 1941, and the war was going on then, and people were coming out here and couldn't find a place to stay. So this man came in the office one day in his work clothes, looking like a tramp, and nobody wanted to be bothered with him because he looked so bad. And I've been used to being around greasy people because my dad was a mechanic. So I didn't mind. I said, I'll take him. So I took him out, and I asked him, what does he want? And he told me what he wanted and how much he had to pay down. He said he had $1,000 to pay down. And so I had 2 houses, and I showed him the worst looking one first, then the better one second. So when I showed him the second one, he decided, I'll take this one. And he pulls out $1,000 out of his pocket and gives it to me right then and there. And I went back to the office with this deposit, and they like to fall through the floor. They were so surprised. So that was a good, lucky start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so you worked for Mr. Maddox, and then you met Johnny Bean. He was a real estate agent.
Yeah, I met Johnny during that time, yeah, when I was working for him, and Johnny was a real estate broker. He had broker's license, but I don't think he wasn't working at it. So then he started working for Mr. Maddox too. So we both worked for Mr. Maddox for a while.
And then when did you guys get married?
Pardon?
When did you get married to Mr. Bean?
Oh, well, I got married to Mr. Bean. He had to go in the Army. So we got married before he went in the Army. I think this was in 43. And so he wanted me to take care of his mother. He said in case he got killed in the Army, he wanted me to be responsible to look out after his mother. So we got married so I could get his pension and help look out after his mother. And he went on overseas, but he didn't get killed or anything. He didn't even get injured. So he came back safe and sound. And his mother lived a long time afterwards.
So the two of you guys made good money together?
Oh yeah, so when he came back out, when he got out of the Army, a friend of his was manager of the Dunbar Hotel, which used to be the only Negro hospital here in L.A. They built this hospital and called it the Dunbar Hospital, built by the black doctors here in L.A. But they didn't have a hospital there anymore. They had turned it into a hotel. And this fellow that Johnny knew was managing the hotel. And the lady decided she wanted to sell it. And she'd sell it to the man who's managing it for $1,000 down. And this guy didn't have the $1,000. So he told Johnny about it. So Johnny and I went and put up the $1,000, but cut him in as partners because it was his idea, you know. And she wouldn't have let us have the $1,000 down anyway. And so we bought the little hotel, which was very good and very successful. And later, we bought this man out because he wasn't doing right. And so Johnny bought him out, and we had it outright. And we made very good out of it. We made like $1,500 a month out of this little hotel. So we really progressed nicely together. And by that time, I had invested in real estate too. I had bought some real estate on my own to have income property. And so then we built a new home. It looked like when we were being successful, he couldn't stand success. And he just started trying to keep up with Mr. Maddox. And Mr. Maddox was a millionaire. And Johnny was not a millionaire, but he was trying to keep up with Mr. Maddox. And I kept telling him that he couldn't afford to do that and pay our bills that we had. We'd gotten ourselves in lots of debt, but we couldn't keep up the payments and him running around with Mr. Maddox. And I couldn't talk any sense into him. And so he wanted to handle the money. At first he let me handle the money. Then he decided he's going to handle the money. So I let him handle it. The very first month, he couldn't pay the bills because he squandered all the money away. Started running around with a young girl. He got himself in trouble with a girl underage. So that put an end to our marriage because he could not stand success.
He couldn't stand, when you say he couldn't stand success, what do you mean by that?
Well, you see, he started trying to spend big money when he couldn't afford it.
So he was overspending.
Yeah, overspending. And I wasn't going to sit there and lose everything, watch him blow it all up, you know. So I just said, well, let's just divide everything. You go your way and I'll go my way. So we sat down sensibly and divided everything. We didn't fight each other. We divided, and he lost what he had. I gave him half of everything we had. He lost it all because he was the kind that didn't know how to handle money.
So your husbands, did any of them take the two of you divorcing really hard? Did any of them really hurt or angry or upset that you guys got divorced? Any of your husbands?
Were they what now?
Were they upset or angry?
Oh, no, he was ashamed. Johnny was ashamed of himself. Well, Waters was upset. Yeah, Waters was upset. Yeah. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
He didn't want to get divorced.
No.
No, but you didn't want to
get
enough of him.
Yeah, but I couldn't stand him.
You were a heartbreaker.
I didn't call myself being one, but I was just trying to find happiness.
And find the right one.
Yeah.
Well, Arthur was the right one.
Oh, yeah, but he died. God took him at a young age. And then after Johnny Bean, I stayed single about 7 years. Met Mr. Williams.
Now, when did you build the house in Gramercy?
51. I built that with Johnny Bean. We built this house together. We'd gotten into all this debt, and we were about to lose it all if I'd stayed with him, because he was a spendthrift. He didn't know how to pay his bills and then go out and have fun.
So you bought a lot. Now tell me about Gramercy Place. You also
Okay.
bought a little white area.
Yeah, it was restricted. Bought the lot in 46. Restrictive covenant was lifted in 48. But this lot, I wanted it. I decided every time I'd find a lot I wanted, they wouldn't sell it to me because it was restricted. Wouldn't sell to colored. So I called up about this lot, and this old woman told me, we can't sell it to you because you're colored. And that made me so mad. So there was a white fellow working in the office with us. I was working at Maddox's office. And so Mr., I think his name was Morris, so he said, Verna, I'll buy it for you. So he went and bought it for me and then deeded it over to me. I put up the money, but he deeded it over to me as soon as he bought it. And this old lady, this old white salesman, when she found out I had bought it, she called me up. You know you can't live in it, don't you? I said, well, if I can't, I have some white relatives who can. For all she knew, this person was a relative of mine who bought it for me. But by the time I got ready to build the house in '49, the restrictive covenant had been broken. So I didn't have any problem there. But I was prepared to go to court if I had to, because I was disgusted. I said, I want to enjoy a new home before I get too old to enjoy it. So Johnny gave me the house, and I gave him the hotel. But neither one of them was paid for, you see. But he lost the hotel, but I did not lose the house.
So you designed the house yourself?
Yeah, I designed it, and James Garrett, the architect, he put my ideas together with his ideas and designed it for me.
So whose idea was it to have the living room that has that curved?
Oh, it was mine. I saw a circle couch in a magazine that I wanted. So the architect designed the room to match the couch. You remember the circle couch I had in there? Well, he designed that room to match the couch, because I told him, I said, this is the couch I want for this room. So he designed it like that to go with that.
Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so now let's move into the 50s. So you divorced Mr. Bean, and then you were single for like 7 years?
Yeah.
And you met Mr. Williams in 59? No.
Well, I met Mr. Williams in 56.
56. And when did you get married?
64.
So you were friends for a long time.
Yeah. And Mr. Williams said, you know, first thing I told him when I met him about my former husbands, because I knew everybody else would tell him. So, and I also told him my age. And he said, you're the first one that ever told me her age. And so when he'd hear about how many times I've been married, see, he already knew. Wasn't anything new to him. And I told him my reasons, you know, why I didn't stay with him. And he didn't blame me. And he said, well, you know, your problem was you married them too fast. You didn't go with them long enough to find them out. And that is true. If I'd gone with Mr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde a little longer, I'd have found him out. But you see, I wasn't married and thinking about childhood days, you know. But as soon as I got in there and found out I'd made a mistake, I was willing to get out of it. So Mr. Williams is a very stable person. He was a trustworthy person. If he gave you his word, you could bet your life on it. He and Arthur were very much alike.
So you, now before that, you met 56. Now what about Arthur Jr.? You guys had an Orange Julius stand, didn't you?
Oh yeah, we had a business, Orange Julius business. After I gave up the grocery store, Arthur decided he wanted to buy a franchise for this Orange Julius business. So I agreed to help him run it, but it was in his name. And so we bought it, and then he was drafted in the Army soon after we bought it. So we didn't get to keep it very long because he had to go in the Army.
So that was, what, 51, you think? Orange Julius stand?
Let's see, 51.
Something like that.
Yeah, somewhere along in there.
He moved out in, what, 52?
What?
Arthur moved out, he moved out of the house in 52.
Out of my house?
Yeah, didn't he? That's what you told me last time.
Well, when he got married in 53.
Oh, he got married. Oh, he didn't move out before then?
No.
Okay, so he got married in 53 and then moved out. So
Yeah.
he lived with you till he was 26 years old?
When he got married?
No, he lived with you until he was about, what, 26? Something like that.
About 20. 28, I think, seemed right to me.
Okay. So he moved out, got married, 53. So between 53 and when you and Mr. Williams got married, anything else significant happen?
Oh, yeah. After I married Mr. Williams, you know, he was
Before
a...
you married him, did anything else happen between that period? From 53 to 64.
Well, I was very successful in real estate during that time. I was working hard with Saito Realty as a salesman.
When did you work for them?
36 years I worked for
What year
Saito.
did you start working for them?
Oh,
Year?
56.
Okay.
56.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And then after I married Mr. Williams, you know, he was the vice principal of high school, Sumner High School in St. Louis, Missouri. And I realized there's so much I did not know. I felt dumb. So I decided to go to college. And I asked Mr. Williams, would he mind if I go to college? He said, no, he wouldn't mind. So I went and finished City College, got my AA degree. I was proud of myself. Took me 3 years, though, to get a 2-year degree. Because when you've been out of school a long time, it's harder to remember things, you know.
And so that was in 60...
68, I finished. I finished in 1968.
Okay.
And so after I got my AA degree, I was going to go on. Now, what was I saying?
So you got your degree in 68, took you 3 years instead of 2.
Oh, yeah, and so after I got my AA degree, I was going to go on and get my BA degree. Is that the next one you get, BA? And so Mr. Williams says, you're smart enough, you don't need to go anymore. I was taking too much time away from him, you know, studying. So he agreed I was smart enough. So I stayed home. And it's just sell real estate, kept selling real estate.
Okay, that's great. So then what happened?
And
So now we're in the 70s. Married to Mr. Williams since 64. You got your AA, you're doing real estate. You didn't get into the movies till like the 80s, right? You didn't get into the movies until the 80s?
well, I started in the movie business before Mr. Williams died, about 1976, I think I started doing that. There was a Japanese lady who used to come in the office. So one day she asked me, did I want to work extra in a movie? So she got me started in working in the movies. So I just did extra work in between with my real estate. So I've been doing that since about 1976.
So what was the first movie you worked in as an extra?
Oh, Coming to America was one of the movies.
What was the first one? Remember the first one you did as an extra? Your first movie?
No, I don't remember.
In 76? No.
I don't remember.
So what year did Mr. Williams die?
77.
Oh yeah, so you were married, what, 13 years?
Yeah, 13 years before he died.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what other things happened?
Well, I was very happy with Mr. Williams. He was a very good provider and very nice, even temper, and quiet, like, didn't drink or smoke.
Mm-hmm. So by then, your Arthur Jr. had his own children.
Oh yeah, he had
3.
children when Mr. Williams died. All 3 of them. Let's see, Ivy, Derek, and you. Oh no, wait a minute. He had married Elizabeth too. He had.
But before that.
He had 6 by the time Mr. Williams died. Because Jason was the baby when he died.
76.
Yeah, 77. Jason was the baby.
So you had a pretty stable life with Mr. Williams.
Yeah, very, very nice.
Did you guys travel?
Oh yeah, we traveled a lot. We had some lovely trips together. Went back to St. Louis to the Sumner High School 75th anniversary reunion. And
So what year did you stop working? What year did you? I guess you're probably still working today, but
Yeah.
when did you leave Saito Realty?
well, when he died, Mr. Saito died about 4 years ago. And then I got my license with Cashew Realty. But I still have my license, but I haven't been active because I haven't been very well. So I still I'll have something to look forward to. And I still work extra in the movies occasionally.
Right.
No.
So from '76 to before you started working in the movies a lot, anything else significant you want to talk about?
I can't think of anything.
Okay.
Can you think of something?
Well, tell me about the movies. So you started in '76, and
Oh, I tell you, the KTEC made a document on the blacks here in Los Angeles, and I was the star in that, called Ode to Central Avenue.
what year was that?
I don't know. That must have been about 4 years ago too.
Yeah, I'll find out. So you've done television shows. You've done movies.
Oh yeah, I've worked a lot in television shows like Martin and Living Single. Worked a lot in. Oh, I'm with the Wayans brothers now. The little lady getting hit by the bus in the beginning of the Wayans brothers comics. Every Wednesday night, Channel 5,
So how do you
9 o'clock.
so how do you like working with like the directors? I mean, they think you're much younger than you are, right?
Oh yes. I put my age back 20 years.
So you put down you were in your 70s?
Yeah. I was 69. 69. Now I'll have to say I'm 70 when after August 27th, I'll have to say I'm 70. Yeah, and they didn't know the difference. At least they didn't act like they knew the difference.
So you were working as an extras for 20 years.
Yeah.
So you've done TVs, comedies, what movies? You've done LA Law.
Oh yeah, I used to work a lot in LA Law.
You were Mrs. Jenkins in Living Color.
Living Color, and I worked in Living Single too. And Chicago Hope and.
Right, have you actually?
Oh, I worked as an Indian lately. They had me as an Indian lady rather, dressed up like an Indian. And let's see. Oh, I cut it off and I go get a picture to show you. Oh, well,
You can
no.
show me later.
The different things that I worked in. It's on the back of this picture.
You can show me later. That's all right.
Okay.
So when did you actually stop selling real estate?
When am I going to stop?
When did you stop, or are you still?
I haven't really stopped yet. I still got my license.
So you still, from time to time, will sell real estate
Yeah, occasionally.
occasionally.
Yeah.
You're still going to.
But see, since I can't drive, I haven't been able to see and I haven't been able to drive, I practically stopped because it's sort of hard showing real estate and can't drive. But I really liked that, selling real estate.
Okay. So in the 70s to 80s, you started doing extras on TV shows and films, in addition to continuing your real estate business.
Yes.
Now, were you buying a lot of property?
Yes. Yeah, whenever I run into a good deal, I'd take advantage of it.
And how much property did you own? How many pieces of property did you own at one point?
About 10.
So you had 10 pieces of property that you owned.
Yeah.
And in the 80s, you continued doing the movies. Now, did you hurt your arm or something? You hurt your, you broke something at some point.
Oh, my leg.
You broke your leg. How'd you do that?
Fell off the kitchen stool at home. I climbed up on the kitchen stool to get something off the top shelf and lost my balance and fell and broke.
Okay, tell me that again. You fell. How did you fall?
I got up on my kitchen stool and getting something off the top shelf. About 6 o'clock one morning, I had lots to do that day, and I decided, well, I'll get this food, get my dinner started, before I leave. And I was trying to get something off the top shelf. Lost my balance and broke my leg.
And what year was that?
Well, I don't remember, but about 5 years ago.
And when did you start having your eye problem?
Oh, I had a cataract removed about 3 years ago. And one eye didn't clear up and the other one did. I just had a corneal transplant.
So at 89, you had your transplant because you wanted to start driving again.
Yeah. Let's see. At 89. That's right. I want to start driving again because I certainly miss driving, I'm telling you.
Now, it says here that you were a public speaker, occasional singer, champion bridge player, excellent ballroom dancer.
Yeah, I used to love to go dancing, but I can't say that I like to do that now.
Now it says you were a public speaker?
Well, like Women's Association, I was president of the Women's Association at church, and it called for me to make speeches quite a bit.
Any other associations you were part of?
Any what?
Other associations, any other clubs?
Oh, well, yeah, I used to belong to lots of bridge clubs, but I don't belong to any now.
Yeah. Occasional singer. What's that?
Well, I used to sing in the choir. Oh, and as a kid, I used to play for the choir. I played the piano, played for the choir, and then I used to sing in the choir.
That says you're a champion bridge player.
Yeah, I love to play bridge. I played duplicate bridge, and I've gone to the duplicate tournaments they had, like in Dallas, Texas. Won a trophy, too. Got several trophies that I've won. My friend and I, Jay Fairchild, used to be partners. She's deceased now.
Okay. Any stories from working as an extra? Any funny stories? Any stories that you want to mention when you worked as an extra? Like, did you meet any of the famous celebrities? Famous movies?
Well, I met Carolyn Burnett. She's very friendly, and she's from Texas originally. And I've met lots of them, but when you're working on the set with them, you're not supposed to talk to them because you detract them from their lines, so they tell us not to talk to them. Okay. And Cagney and Lacey, I used to work a lot with them.
Mm-hmm. So what was the last thing you worked on?
It was a video where I was an Indian. Oh, also worked on another a TV series. It's a pilot, and that was recently too, where I played a dead person and talking to spirits. They were talking to me after I died. I was dead, and they're talking to my spirits.
What year did your mother die?
1970. And my dad died in 1941, okay, just before Pearl Harbor.
So how would you sum up your life? how would you describe what's important? What things were important to you?
Well, I feel I've been blessed. I felt that I've always had a guiding angel watching over me and telling me what to do and what investments to make. Because usually all the investments I've made have been successful. I haven't ever lost anything. And I always felt like my guiding angel was telling me what to do. And I had wonderful parents. My dad backed me up 100%, but however, he died young. And so did my first husband die young. And my last good husband died. So I'm left on my own now. But I have my beautiful son and grandchildren.
And great-grandchildren.
And my great-grandchildren. I got 6 grands and 6 great-grandchildren. And my daughter-in-law. Everybody's so nice.
And how would you have any quotes or sayings that you lived your life by, like your father had? Don't let a good man. You can't keep a good man down.
Oh yeah, my dad's philosophy was, you can't keep a good man down. If this person over here tells you you can't do something, and you feel within yourself you can, you don't let that worry you. You go ahead and do it. And where there's a will, there is a way.
How about yourself? Do you have any philosophies of life, or what would you say to someone who, who's growing up, someone young?
Well, be dependable. That's the main thing in life. Be dependable. Don't say you're going to do something if you don't intend to do it. People won't get angry if you say you can't do it. But if you say you can do it and don't do it, then they get angry. And they say, oh, he's no good. You can't depend on him. Dependability, that's the main thing. And honesty. Be honest and dependable. Trustworthy, same thing.
So keep your word. You make a promise.
Yeah.
Stick to it.
Yeah. If you give your word, you must keep it.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, since I've been ill, I don't know what I would do if it hadn't been for Elizabeth, my sweet daughter-in-law. She's just right there, Johnny, on the spot. Grandsons and great-grands, they're not quite large enough yet.
Okay, I'm going to stop it. So you always believed in hard work and working for yourself, right?
Working for yourself?
Uh-huh. I mean, that seems, your father had his own business and you had your own business.
Oh, yeah.
Working hard and not letting people keep you down.
That's right. Yeah, because there's always somebody going to be jealous of you, especially if you try to progress and have anything in life. But you don't worry about that. As my dad says, if you spill some milk, get busy and clean it up and get some more. Don't sit there and worry about it.
Okay.
I forgot to tell you about that big commercial I had with McDonald's. And all I had to do was sit at a table with a salad in front of me and say, clean, clean, clean. And that about says it all. That was my big chance. I really enjoyed that.